Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Coleman, and I'm the VP of Revenue Growth and Enablement at Clari, a revenue operations platform based in California, helping revenue teams create a revenue process that is connected, efficient, and predictable. I've been here at Clari for about almost 2 years now, leading demand generation, sales development, and sales enablement. And prior to Clari, I was early at a company called Looker and helped build the SDR team for about 6 years, and then Looker was acquired by Google in the summer of 2019. I am here today to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is optimizing the prospect experience. There are so many different components of the prospect experience that oftentimes get overlooked or aren't given enough time of day and aren't given enough thought, aren't given enough strategic thinking on the part of marketing leaders, sales leaders, revenue leaders, however it is you want to frame it up. And the issue with that is that it's causing some pretty serious issues throughout the entire cycle. It's causing a leaky bucket in a few different categories, a few different funnels here. So you're losing leads before they convert to meetings because you haven't optimized this prospect experience. And when you get them into meetings, you're perhaps not converting them into opportunities because there are a few process things that you just haven't optimized. And then once the opportunity does exist, you're losing them throughout the deal cycle. And there are a lot of different reasons for this, and there's no one size fits all solution to it, but there is a mindset and there's a mode of thinking that I think can really help companies and revenue teams optimize all these different funnels and plug all the holes in the bucket. And the way that I think the mindset that's useful to keep in mind here is that a lot of post-sales teams think about this concept of bear hugging their customers. Customer success, account managers, value engineers, executive introductions, board of directors introductions, all these things that are meant to ensure that customers are as happy as possible. And so what we need to think about on the pre-sales side is how do we take that mindset of delighting our customers and really bear hugging them to show them how much we care? How do we do that in a pre-sales way? How can we show our prospects that we're thinking not about what's good for us, but we're thinking about what's good for them? And so this quote is useful to keep in mind from Clint Eastwood. It's not about you, it's about them. And this is a mistake that I know I've made over the years, and I think pretty much every revenue team is making as well, is that when we think about, SDR qualification, for example, we're saying, well, I know what our ideal customer profile is, and I know what my qualification criteria are to create a meeting. So I'm going to go down the list. I'm going to make sure all these boxes are checked, and it's going to be good for me. It's going to be good for my process. But if you're the prospect on the other side of that phone call, you're sitting there and you're like, this is not useful for me. They don't actually care about what I'm trying to do. They care more about this rigid set of qualification criteria that they've created. So that little mindset to say, all right, well, let's shift a little bit and let's think less about qualification and let's think more about education and true discovery and really understanding what their problems are and if we can solve them, not how we can solve them. But let's be very honest with them and let's be honest with ourselves from the jump and say, hey, look, we don't know if our solution is going to be the right one for you. We don't know if the pain that we solve for is the brightest burning fire that you have right now. So let's learn about it. Tell us about what you have going on comprehensively. Like, we know that you're not just interested in purchasing Clari right now. We know that you have a litany of other things that you're focused on. So let's learn about them. And if there's an opportunity for us to move forward, great. If not, we'll catch you in 3 months and see if it's a better time then. And so this a little bit of a shift in mindset ensures that they know you care about them, that you're qualifying opportunities properly and only working things that have a real likelihood of closing, and basically that you're creating a really nice pre-sales experience for your prospects. And so you can do this, that little example about discovery versus education versus qualification. You can think about this in every single component of the prospect experience. I've mapped out a few of them. So this top line are things that are most traditionally thought of as being marketing owned. And the middle line of this prospect journey are things that are typically going to be SDR owned. And then the bottom line are things that are typically, again, sales and sales engineer owned. And I'm sure this is not the most comprehensive list in the world. You could break this down even a bit more granularly. But the important part about this is that you can think about how to optimize every single one of the blocks in this journey. And so the way that you can think about all of these things is basically just stepping back and being really honest with yourself about how much strategic thought has gone into these. Have you really dissected what it means to think about content consumption? So when I am a visitor on your website and I want to find out about what you do, you've gone out of the way to create all this great content, either with an internal team or you've outsourced it to an agency or whatever it is, your content exists. Hopefully you take pride in it. If I'm a prospect and I can't find that content, what's the point of having created it? Or if I'm a prospect and I find the content, but then there's this huge form that's 30 fields long and I have to tell you my mother's maiden name and the color of my first car. It's like, what is all this stuff? Why are you making it hard for people to consume your content? And then really, you can get more quantitative based, and you can say, well, when people start filling out my forms, what % of them are completing it? So that form abandonment rate is really interesting. And then content consumption, how is your content delivered? Are they getting that PDF immediately? Are you emailing it to them? Is there some other landing page experience that you've created? And let's look at the analytics there and let's see what our prospects prefer as it relates to consuming that content. If it's emailed and a landing page, are they opening that email more and spending more time on the content there? Or are they going to that landing page in real time and viewing things there? And what's the bounce rate? What's the dwell rate? All those sorts of web activity stats you need to think about as it relates to content consumption, again, to optimize for them. You want to do the thing that is best for them, that delivers the value that they're expecting to get out of your content. So another sort of version of this is through this middle row again, which is mostly SDR owned. This component of what I call selling the meeting. And this does not mean that you're just trying to convince people to take a meeting for the sake of a meeting, but rather you've already gotten them, SDR has already gotten them to agree to a meeting. And now oftentimes it'll happen on the phone. It's a relatively short conversation, or sometimes it happens over email and there's not a ton of context that kind of goes back and forth between what they're trying to do and what you're hoping to show them in that first meeting. And so it's up to the SDR then to keep that person interested in the meeting that's forthcoming. So if I'm an SDR and I set up the meeting for 7 or 10 days from now, that's a long time. And there's still what I refer to as a priority gap between how high a priority they are to you and how high a priority you are to them. So that prospect is number one on an SDR's priority list. Like, I've got to make this happen. This is how I'm paid. It's super important. But that prospect, unless they're super interested in that, that fire again is burning very brightly, typically they're not extremely excited about a first meeting with a new vendor. So you have to convince them that they should be. And so what the SDR can do in conjunction with product marketing, content marketing, and even with the sales team is create what we refer to as a pre-meeting nurture drip. And so this is a manually executed drip campaign that serves up content that's already created. We've already created this content to address these questions. So I want to make sure they know, maybe I only had a 30-second conversation with them, but I should still have a sense of what they're trying to get out of this meeting. If they're trying to solve a forecasting use case, that's what Clari solves oftentimes for our customers, then I want to send them a piece of content that says, here's a really robust solution to in-quarter and out-quarter forecasting. And here's how one of our customers, Okta, made it happen for themselves. Just no call to action, no nothing, just thought you'd enjoy this piece of content. We're going to show you something very similar in the call that we have together. So we have that to look forward to. And then additional content that's either based on their persona or based on their industry, the industry that they're in, or some other reason that you have to add value to them ahead of that meeting to reduce the no-shows that you've had, that you have. You already got them to agree. That's a really difficult thing to do. And now you need to reduce no-shows. You need to keep them engaged. You need to prove to them that there's something in it for them. And this pre-meeting drip is a really useful way of doing that. Now, you don't want to send them an email or two every day. That's too much. But if that meeting is 7 or 10 days out and you send them 2 or 3 emails and then a day of meeting reminder, there's no harm in that, especially if the tone of your emails truly is value add. So think about that. Think about keeping folks warm ahead of that meeting, reducing your no-show rate, and importantly, again, creating a really good experience for them so that their expectations are aligned with what they're going to get out of the meeting, and then you actually deliver in that first meeting. You know, you actually have to show them the things that you promised to show them so that all of this flows together. Finally, post-meeting touches. So this is something that I think a lot of revenue teams, pre-sales teams take for granted oftentimes. They say, oh, you know, I hired these really smart and accomplished and capable salespeople, and they're going to take care of everything after that first meeting. Like, they've got it. They don't need any help. And that's just not the case. Like, yes, they are smart, they are capable, they can do all these things, but a little bit of standardization and a little bit of guidance goes a really long way. And so creating some templates that can inform these post-meeting touches for different scenarios is very, very useful for a sales and SE team. So that if that first meeting is with a sales operations persona and we showed them our forecasting solution, I want to give them a template that says, here are the things that we can send to them after a meeting. Here's how we solve this pain for this person. Here's how we're driving next steps. Here's what you can expect on the next call. And then you can work in some sort of give and get frameworks there too. You know, we're going to put together an executive demo for you, and we just need you to sign this mutual NDA. And you can just keep things moving that way. And again, just give a little bit more of a framework, a little bit more standardization to your sales team so that they can ensure that they're creating the right experience for their prospects by ensuring that they always know, as you see here, the questions on the right, the prospect always knows that we are mindful of the pains that they're experiencing day to day, week to week, month to month, and that we can address and solve those pains. We're always doing the things that we need to do to tastefully keep them engaged. We're not just asking for things from get from them, but we're giving to them, we're educating them, we're showing that we have a point of view on their business and on their role and what we can make happen for them. We are the ones who are driving next steps. So again, a mistake that a lot of sales folks make is that they defer a bit too much to a prospect. And as somebody who buys software more frequently than I care to admit, I always prefer it when the sales team says, here's what needs to happen next and here's why. And they're driving those next steps and they're doing it in a mindful way, and they're not pushing. They're just saying, hey, look, I sell this stuff all the time. I know what needs to happen from a sequence of events standpoint, and I'm delivering that to you and guiding you through this sequence so that you don't have to do all the thinking for me. Like, I'm helping make this happen in a more strategic partnership. It's important beyond these first meetings that we're engaging with the entire buying group. Again, we're creating this prospect experience that it's not just one person who's going to be making this buying decision, but in all likelihood, it's closer to 7 people who are making this buying decision. So what have we done to arm our sales reps with the materials that they need to create a good experience for all 7 of those people? Similar paradigm, just broader set of personas, and it requires content creation, content aggregation, and then delivery mechanisms that are useful for the prospect. So, in summary, if you can really think about every step of your prospect experience in those kind of relatively high level buckets, and you can break down every one of those buckets so that you can optimize all the subcomponents of them, you can codify all of those components for your entire team, and then you can standardize the right way to do things. Again, always keeping the prospect in mind and really putting yourself in their shoes and saying, if I were the one who is on the receiving end of what my team is giving, would I like it? Would I enjoy it? Would it be useful? And hopefully the answer to that is yes. And if it is, then you can standardize that process and you can be pretty sure that you're filling as many of the holes in that bucket as possible, and you're keeping as many people in the funnel as possible, and delivering as much revenue as you can. So that is my take on optimizing the prospect experience. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, just Kyle Coleman at Clari. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the summit.